Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of State of the YouTube. It has been a while since we've last posted anything to this channel or to our various feeds on Spotify and Apple Music, which I don't think you've updated them for the latest episode.
I know.
Back in May.
Listen, there's a lot of issues with updating on iTunes and whatnot on Spotify. I have to pay for both accounts, and for some reason, this company that I go through trying to update the podcast to get them on iTunes is very convoluted, and it seems to be a little bit glitchy. So I'm trying to get that figured out because I want that to work fluently going forward.
Well, anyway, speaking of convoluted, that brings me to my biggest point about what exactly we're trying to say here with this update video. Now, I've gotten questions periodically for this whole time, ever since all the Mumkey drama started happening. And I'm sure anyone who's still sticking around, who cares to listen at this point, is probably begging for answers or just sort of indifferently sitting there and just watching because they're bored. Either way, some of you probably want to know what's up with the show. Is the future of the show in jeopardy? And what exactly are we going to be doing moving forward?
Right, because it's been how long since our last episode?
The last episode we recorded at the end of May, and it's currently July 28th as we're recording this.
Yeah, so we took a little bit of a hiatus, and I too have gotten a lot of messages asking about Mumkey and the nature of the podcast and if Mumkey's doing well. Obviously, everyone who's been keeping up with all of us on social media, I'm sure you've seen that Mumkey's been kind of going through a hard time right now. And that's put the podcast on hold because, we really couldn't record these episodes and just kind of act like there wasn't this huge catastrophe going on while Mumkey was still figuring all of his personal stuff out.
That's right. That's right. And I feel like we owe sort of the audience a bit of disclosure, specifically what's been happening. So originally in June, the Mr. Meatman takedown video came out on Mumkey, and we were supposed to do an episode where Meatman and Mumkey were going to settle it out on the show. Apparently, the video really hit Mumkey hard. It sent him so far down the spiral that he almost got lost down there forever. But originally, we were going to do it. I talked to him about a week later as he was in the process of moving from North Carolina to Iowa, and he was still under the impression that he wanted to do it. And a few weeks after that, once he got to Iowa, he didn't really want to do the show anymore. So he backed out of the Meatman thing. All the fans, I guess, who were expecting the Meatman thing. It's not happening.
I don't think it's going to happen. And honestly, I don't blame Mumkey for not wanting to do it. I mean, if it was if he was taking it a different way and was taking it more lightly, I think that he would have no problem jumping on it. But this was just the beginning of a lot of things that had been building up in his life and really weighing down on him. And so having to come on, the podcast and duke it out with someone who, made this really, really dark and critical video of him probably wasn't the most healthy thing for him mentally. And so I can easily understand why he wouldn't want to do it and just say, fuck all this.
Now, concerning Mumkey's relationship with the show, I'm really uncertain of that right now because during this whole time, there has been a lack of communication from sort of both parties, me, Rusty, and Mumkey, where you have to understand our position here, where we were put in a very tough spot between trying to support a friend and also sort of looking out for ourselves at the same time and making sure that Mumkey's, let's be honest here, reckless actions didn't really try to take us down with him. Now, I'm not a PR guy. I'm not one to remove someone from the show just because they made some mistakes. But at the same time, this show is not my livelihood. This show has been placed so far on the back burner for me, and I've been so demotivated to make the show that
Right.
I've really sort of stopped caring about it. And only by going to VidCon and sort of hearing from people in real life that they actually enjoy this show, that's all that's really keeping me around at this point. But I have regular videos to make on my channel. I have stuff I have to do for my main channel. I vowed to never become one of those YouTubers where a podcast would completely derail my main channel career.
And I think that's kind of something that we all think. I mean, all three of us. I mean, obviously the show is always on the back burner because we're just doing this for fun, like for shits and giggles. So as Mumkey's situation was going down and the podcast kind of dwindled away, I think for myself and for you, Emp, that was our time to really just focus on our own videos. And my whole take on Mumkey's situation, I don't want to say something like kicking him off the show because the show is important, because the show is just us fucking around. So that it's not like there's any money, lingering on it. There's no contracts that we signed. There's no necessary need why we would have to kick anyone off as a host. And a little bit, I wanted to just give Mumkey his space to get his head together and work out all the issues that he's been having. And then if he wants to come back, he can come back. Now, Emp, I think that you have this idea that we can't move forward with the podcast unless he addresses all of this stuff, all the Meat Man stuff, all of relationship issues.
Here's the thing. It's been a couple months since then.
Right.
I think a lot of people have kind of started to accept it and move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully, and I mean a big hopefully, the whole Lou saga is over.
And Mumkey's addressed all this too on his channel. So he's been updating people, outside of the podcast, so they can find their answers.
I don't know. That's the thing, though. It's difficult to listen to Mumkey right now because we are very unsure of whether or not he is actually being totally honest with himself. He went on the whole spree with Lou the Kitty, the whole fling, and it's supposedly over now, but I don't really know what it is. This whole thing has just sort of taken Mumkey and turned him upside down.
Yeah, this is a huge growing, not coming of age, but growing as a person, saga in his life that it's probably very confusing. The first thing that his initial thoughts on a situation might not be what he thinks 1 week later, but he's kind of putting out the information as it comes to his mind. And I feel like it's evolving quickly. I mean, he's already started putting out, his old content. He's moved back into different style of videos rather than his sad vlogs where he's just sitting in front of the camera.
Well, mostly it remains to be seen. He's uploaded one video so far that you could kind of classify as normal. But during this whole period, he's been acting very erratically, very unpredictably, having these long spells of just going offline and then coming back to argue with people on Twitter and passive-aggressively complain. It's just not good. The way I see it, Mumkey has two options going forward. He can either A, come back to the internet, just embrace all the criticism, move on from it, and accept that this has happened and that he can move on past it and
I think that's what he's doing.
To listen to people and not repeat the same mistakes. Or he can go offline cold turkey, which I think he's talked about doing several times.
But he kind of turned back on that pretty quickly.
He's had week-long intervals where he has not done anything online. I say he has to pick one or the other. And for that reason, the future of the podcast, it's still uncertain. I mean, Mumkey
what do you mean he has to pick one or the other? I don't agree with that. I mean, why can't he be able to? He should be able to just take a break and reevaluate himself, get his life back together. I mean, you got to understand this is a huge curveball in his life, and so to expect that within just a month he's going to be right back into Mumkey Jones mode, jumping on the podcast, acting like nothing happened. Hey, all that's behind me. I've addressed it, and now we're ready to talk about, whatever internet drama is happening today. I think he should be able. We should give him that vacation time to figure it all out without just crossing him off. And of course, I'm not saying that either of us are crossing him off. I actually talked to Mumkey. I DM'd him earlier right before the show and asked if he wanted to do an episode, kind of a recap, an update on his life, maybe him talking about his situation and where he's at now. And he seemed responsive to it. He said that he would like to do that.
All right, well, that's good. I've just been very uncertain because I've tried messaging him on lots of stuff, and he hasn't been responding to me. So I don't really know what the whole deal is there. But that's the thing. I can't... At some point, I have to make an executive decision and say that I'm going to say it's somewhat unlikely that Mumkey will be a mainstay on the rest of the show. Obviously, he's not kicked off. He's not banned. He's welcome to come back when he demonstrates that he's in an appropriate headspace to do so. But I don't know. The show doesn't really mean that much to me anyway. I just like it as sort of an outlet at times to just kind of talk about stuff. And for the few people out there who actually care about it, I guess I have somewhat of an obligation to put on a show for them. But I don't know. This whole show has basically been in limbo for the past month and a half at least because of all this Mumkey drama. Simply because as long as Mumkey doesn't commit to one thing or the other, we can't really commit to doing the show at all. It's all contingent on what Mumkey does. Like either we need to move on or we can just have him back and pretend that things will go back to normal. Well, but I'm willing to accept that things will never be the same. And that's probably what's going to happen. I
tend to agree with you that it's quite possible that if he's stepping back from the internet, from the level where he was, where, very active on Twitter, kind of knew the drama, was interested in being a little antagonistic and whatnot. And that was, really what he brought to the show. It was, he was that guy. And I feel like he's not going to want to do that same thing again and may not be motivated to the same degree that he was before. So it's really something that we're just going to have to try, bring him back on if he feels like he wants to be back on, if he's motivated, if he's back in the right headspace to do it, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess feel like, we just don't know right now.
I feel like if Mumkey so chooses to come on the show and sort of disclose what's been going on, it's going to be a lot clearer for us what that decision is. But for now, we just don't know, kind of like the rest of you. But I can certainly make an educated guess that it doesn't really seem like Mumkey's going to be a permanent member of the show for much longer.
Well, I don't know, man. It's just so up in the air. I mean, how can it be an educated guess if you're saying there's a lack of communication from, in the past? But if you can turn it around, things could be good or new in a different level. He could just come back through like a caterpillar that came out of the cocoon, or a butterfly that came out of the cocoon, and have a new perspective, something enlightening and just as entertaining.
I guess so. And he's always welcome to stop by for an episode. But it's just the past several weeks have just been so rocky and erratic. It's difficult to look to Mumkey as someone we can sort of count on to just be a regular member,
Yeah, but goddamn, can we even count on ourselves in that aspect? I mean, we're talking about how lazy we've been. And I really do enjoy doing the podcast. I enjoy putting it out. Obviously, it's sporadic and there's long breaks in between, but it is fun to do. It's fun to catch up. It's fun to talk to, both of you guys just regularly and just to discuss shit, whether we are super educated about it or if we're just giving off our hot takes. But I want people to have some sort of content in addition to what we're all putting out in our spare time. Well, maybe not our spare time, but in the forefront of our time.
I don't know. I guess for me, there was a point a few weeks ago when I thought about just ending the podcast entirely. And this was before
really?
I went to VidCon.
You didn't tell me that.
This is when all the Mumkey stuff was at sort of peak downward spiral levels. Shortly after he announced he was getting back together with Lou, which, let's just admit here, nobody liked that. Not one person liked that.
That also broke the internet. Mumkey's been breaking the internet over and over and over again these past few months.
Yeah, he's just been breaking kiwi farms and the comment sections of our podcast, asking for Mr. Meatman to come on.
Fuck Mr. Meatman.
Anyway, I just I don't know, through April and May, I'm just so demotivated with the show that
now,
I was perfectly willing to just never do it again. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's because all of our episodes basically get demonetized instantly. They're not going in recommended. People are barely watching them. The people that do watch them, God, why can't our fucking audience just be like the benign rest of the podcast audiences out there that just blindly accept what we say? Why do they have to be the ones to just question everything and hang on every little word? It's just discouraging, you know?
Wait, that they're questioning us?
Yeah, why can't they just be like the sheeple that are fans of every other podcast? With like everything we make, it seems like there's some big mass critical discussion about us. And
well like, dude, you're fucking reading the comments section. That's rule number 1. You never do that unless you're specifically looking for them.
It's difficult to gauge feedback for the podcast because, like, how else are we supposed to improve and make the show better for the audience without listening to the criticism? But goddamn, some of these fucking people who watch this show are the most pedantic, whiny, complaining bitches I've ever seen.
Gotta give me an example.
In any comment section ever. Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
See, I rarely read the comments.
I'm not averse to criticism, but sometimes it's just like, goddamn, like, why am I here? Like, I don't need to sit here and listen to this. I can make content that's people like on my main channel, and I don't have to sit here and take this shit for a show that gets a few thousand views that most people have moved on from and stopped caring about anyway.
Yeah, it looks like we average around, I don't know, 25 to 30,000 views an episode, which isn't bad. I mean, our older ones obviously have more because they've been around longer, but also we've been inconsistently uploading and whatnot. But I mean, I do understand just the nature. When we're on this podcast, is the podcast growing? And probably not as fast as anyone would like. But
well, we're not uploading. It's a vicious cycle in a way where just getting constantly demotivated. Let me clarify this criticism thing. Feel free to criticize the show. Like, that's how we get better.
Mm-hmm.
We look at the criticism and we take it to heart and we try to make improvements based on that. But I just get the impression it constantly goes through my head when I look at some of these comments, like, why do you care that much about the show? Like, why do you care so much and get this angry and emotionally invested? It's just the impression I get from some of these comments.
Well, dude, you have a defeatist attitude. You got to think people care about the show. They actually enjoy it. And this is what you were saying when we went out to VidCon, hearing how many people, I was surprised how many people were asking about the podcast and are we doing any more SOTY episodes? And I didn't think that anyone really even listened to it. I mean, I guess that's just kind of the image I created in my head, but these are other YouTubers. These are people in the industry, and they're invested in the show. They like
hearing... Yeah, I know. And that's probably the number one reason I feel obligated to continue the show. It's for the YouTubers out there. It's for the YouTubers who like our insight and like getting advice from the show. As far as the general audience goes, I'm sorry out there, but I really could care less about you.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen.
Care less, whatever the fucking expression is. But your version of the show, your idea of the show, little viewer listening at home, can be anything you want. But my idea of the show is just It's supposed to be this fun thing where we just get on. It's kind of low effort, and we banter with friends. Some of you guys out there, you treat this like we're some fucking. We have some journalistic credibility. We have journalistic excellence to uphold. We get
Is that really what the comments are saying?
We mince one minor fact incorrectly, and you're all of a sudden all over us. Well, and it's like, Jesus fucking Christ! This show is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a barroom banter. It's supposed to be full of conjecture. I don't.
Right.
If you want to watch research, go to my fucking main channel. I can research those videos there. I don't understand why the podcast has to be this big. Like, we're not journalists. This isn't a news show. We talk about topical topics, but it's not a news show. We can get stuff wrong sometimes. We're not. We admit this multiple times during the show, where we're unsure on a lot of issues. And I get it. Okay, I get that it's fucking annoying to listen to people who are supposedly in an authoritative position, and they end up knowing less than you about something. I get it. That's annoying. But some of you guys just need to chill the fuck out with this goddamn outrage over us just hanging on our every sentence that we get wrong.
I'll tell you what it is that the difference between doing videos on your own channel and doing this podcast is that on the podcast, we are not living in our own circle jerk. And people don't necessarily care about two of us while they might care about one. So yeah, they might be critical about what we're all saying because we're sitting here talking as real people. And it's not just going to be all love and upvotes because they love our channel, our personal channels, or our personal personalities. So yeah, there's going to be criticism in the comments section, but
dude, people can feel free to criticize me if I get stuff wrong. But at the same time, don't pretend that the podcast is something that it's not. I'm telling you what the show is. It's just a simple thing where we get on and talk with friends. All right? We're not reporting the news. We're not obligated to get these facts correct. We'll admit when we're not sure about something so that there's doubt that the fact might not be exactly as we presented it. We admit to that.
I guess
Stop
we should
treating
put a disclaimer.
it like we're fucking journalists and that we're not doing our due diligence for like mincing one fact wrong or pronouncing one word. I don't know.
Who commented this, Emp? It seems like there's got to be one comment that you're thinking of that seems to really be weighing down on your mind right now. Because I never got this impression at all from the comments. It was usually just like, oh, so-and-so has a dumb take on something, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously, we all get a lot of criticism in the comments, which I find to be funny, but I think that's actually like a lovable aspect of the show, is that since we're all speaking off the top of our head, we make mistakes and we say some dumb things at time, and then we have to go back and realize, wow, I looked really stupid that episode or in that particular conversation.
God, why can't our audience just be more sheep-like and just listen to everything we say and accept it unconditionally?
All right, how about this? All right, if you guys love the show, comment how much you love the show and why in the comment section of this video. But if you don't like the show, if you have some real criticism, shove it up your ass.
Dude, it's a podcast. That's why I like getting on the podcast, because I don't have to do research. You know how long it takes me to research my YouTube videos? I don't want to do that for a fucking podcast that gets a few thousand views. Who the fuck cares? About this? This is just one of the billions of podcasts online. Everyone has a fucking podcast. If you don't like it, go listen to someone else's. Just leave.
No. If
just
you don't
leave
like
if you fucking all you do is just complain about every single aspect.
No, keep complaining, but we're just we'll just skip over the comments when we're reading it. Obviously, people are gonna always be complaining. I mean, and even shouting that out, you're just bringing the criticism on ourselves.
Fine, go ahead. There's no way it can possibly be worse than what it's already been on the videos we posted already.
Oh, it's not so bad, man. I mean, people seem to generally like all the episodes.
Yeah, I know it's like a vocal minority, but still, though, it's like the only feedback I see for the show. So it's just discouraging. It puts me in a mindset of like, why do I have to sit down, spend hours recording this stuff? And I used to spend hours editing it. We're working to get an editor for the show, so it's at least somewhat easier. But still like, why am I putting in this effort into this thing that's just going to get mocked and ridiculed because I got one fact wrong, when I could be working on main channel stuff that gets 100 times more views and praise and respect? I don't get it. It feels like a waste of my time at points. It just feels like a waste of my time.
I do see what you're saying. It does seem, yeah, right. It does seem futile, and a podcast does seem like you're just working for seemingly no reason.
Because we don't have sponsors.
Yeah, we're not making money off this at all.
We never ended up opening that Patreon. This is basically for chump change. Whatever ads somehow get through our permanently demonetized videos. That's basically all we're doing. It's certainly not for the exposure. Both of our main channels have way more views and subscribers than this podcast could ever have. So I have to ask myself these questions all the time. Why do it? Why spend the time? Why put in the effort? And I guess just seeing people at VidCon actually care about the show and ask me about the show was enough to see that at least it has an impression on some people out there. And that's at least something to work towards. But you take this and throw it in with all the Mumkey drama, and it's just like, oh my God, this show is just weighing down on my shoulders. Just the thought of doing it. It's just exhausting. It's just exhausting dealing with all the drama.
Exhausting. It shouldn't be exhausting. It shouldn't be.
Because of the point of the show is for us to get in a call, have some fun, talk about stuff, act retarded, give some retarded takes, give some slightly better takes, and that's all. I don't understand why it has to be so difficult.
Well, dude, I think you're taking
ourselves.
You're just taking the criticism too hard. You're focusing on the criticism. That's what's
it's not really
popping out to you.
It's not really the content of the criticism. It's just the fact that people care that much and they can get that bitter regardless.
I mean, is it really affecting any other aspect of your life or career outside of this podcast on this channel?
Well, it hasn't really so far, but there's always the inherent risk with doing stuff like this where people can just take a bunch of stuff out of context and make a takedown video about you. I don't know.
Is this Mr. Meatman thing, or just this whole, not just Mr. Meatman, the whole call out culture, everything that's been going on YouTube where it's all call out this person for this thing. They said this on this podcast, blah, blah, blah. Is that weighing down on you in the sense that you fear that you could easily become a victim of this call out culture because of some unfocused argument that you made on this podcast?
Yeah, there's always that fear. And whenever I get on and record one of these things, now I've gotten better. I've generally gotten better at speaking and kind of formulating my thoughts coherently.
Mm-hmm.
But still, though, I run the risk whenever that goes on. And I've got good shit going on my main channel right now. And I really don't want to jeopardize it. And that's just another thing of the list of detriments, the list of potential pitfalls I have for coming on here and doing episodes. But I don't know.
Okay, so I mean,
I just want it to be fun again. You know, when we first started the show at Rusty Cage's house in the swamps of Gainesville, that was fun. That was fucking fun. It was just 3 or 4 guys together in a room having idiotic discussions about God knows what.
Well, maybe it's because we're focusing too hard on issues like, you know, drama that everyone's talking about, and everyone's expecting more than just a quick Twitter hot take on.
Oh, well, come on. The Mumkey stuff is right in our backyard, dude. Like,
I know. Well, that's right in our backyard. Here. But so I'll be honest with the Mumkey stuff. I mean, this is just in the nature, I guess, of how I like to handle stuff like this. Mumkey is a personal friend, not just someone on the internet that I can just rant on about. So I'm very reserved when it comes to making a video and talking about, oh, here's my take on Mumkey's situation. I already think that there's been a huge breach in his private life. And I know that this is my boomer take. That I don't think that it was necessarily fair game how much his personal life initially was exposed out to the world and just turned into this drama thing. And I know that's the new precedent that's been happening on YouTube. So I don't feel right going out and talking in detail too much or speculating on the nature of why he's doing things or what he plans on doing going forward. I want to give him his space to figure that out and then bring him back on. Now, if he wasn't a friend, if he was just some guy, I'd probably say fuck it. And yeah, I'd be all down to talk shit. But it just doesn't seem right to use that situation for what? I mean, why would we even talk about it? It would just be to keep our audience up to date, but they can figure it out. I mean, there's so many videos out there talking about the rise and fall of Mumkey Jones and whatnot. I mean, they've just been showing up in my recommended section nonstop. But I guess what it seems like, Emp, is that you're not having fun doing the podcast anymore. And for me, I find it a little bit therapeutic to have to be on this podcast and to have to just talk, off the top of my head. And I'm not the best public speaker, so I have a lot of pauses and I say a lot and I get confused in my head and whatever, like I'm doing right now. But it's fun to do that because it's kind of like a release. I don't have to be so particular about all my words like I would if it was a formulated video on my main channel.
That's right. Like, what else is a podcast? This isn't one of those fucking NPR journalism storytelling podcasts where they go in with fucking Foley effects. No, we'd have like no production value for the show. This is just us. This is just coming on, turning on a microphone and yelling into our computers and posting it online for the world to hear. That's it. Stop caring so much about the podcast not being this big prestigious thing, okay?
Well, what if we just talked about things that weren't so heavy weighing on our shoulders or that there's so much pressure to talk about? And just kind of go back to what you were saying. Like when we started the podcast, we were just talking about stupid movies and 9/11 conspiracies and things like that. I mean, we haven't talked about VidCon at all. And that would have been a very easy and fun thing to do.
I don't know. Maybe it's just, at least speaking from my perspective, it's my endless desire to constantly have to prove myself to people.
Sure.
But, yeah, the thing you said with the pressure, that's kind of how I've been feeling. We're just under pressure now to do the shit. We're under pressure to do the Meat Man episode. I'm under pressure to explain and have razor sharp debate points in the Reddit episode. I don't understand why it has to be this much pressure. The point of a podcast is that it's easy and relaxed, and it's an alternative to what we normally have to do for our content, where we are going out there and trying to do stuff, at least personally speaking, do stuff I've never done before, trying to wow people. This is just a show where a bunch of guys come together and talk.
Yeah,
I don't see why it has to be any more than that.
Well, it really kind of is an experiment for at least myself and you, I imagine, rather than Mumkey, who has a lot of experience on podcasts, because this is the first podcast I've ever done. And so, having to entertain people, it's fun to kind of try things and see what works and see what you can get away with. And do I sound dumb if I say this? Or will I get criticized if I say that? It's sharpening our skills. And yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, I would imagine stand-up comedy where you go out there and you're probably just going to suck and everyone's going to boo you off stage. But if you do it long enough, you might get good at it. And so for me, that's why I want to do it. I want to force myself to do something that is slightly uncomfortable. And I do find podcasts to be slightly uncomfortable because you have to just keep talking for a long time and you can't just like space off or whatever.
I mean, it's not that uncomfortable for me in the moment, but the uncomfortability comes from afterwards, and there's this big angry reaction to just something I've said in the podcast that at the time I didn't even think twice about because it was just in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I have to wonder if this thing's going to just stick around with me for the rest of my life.
Right. No, Emp, I know exactly what you're saying, and this kind of goes back to an episode when we had Internet Historian on, and we were discussing what happens when someone who is anonymous, their appearance is anonymous online, and then they show their face. and they start doing more personal stuff. And this is something that I think Mumkey did that was the biggest changer in his channel, was when he went from being a cartoon avatar that people could put, they didn't know where he was coming from and who is this guy talking. And then he shows his face, and then he starts doing personal vlogs. And that creates a vulnerability that people can then attack. They can attack you on you as who you are rather than what you're saying, and that where they can only speculate. And what this podcast kind of does is a similar thing, where these are our unfocused words. So instead of kind of curating how people see us by writing out point for point and really dwindling down our arguments to the most solid points, this is us just rambling on. And it doesn't make us look as smart or as, I don't know, well-spoken. But what it does do is it gives a little bit of personality, and I think that people do like to get more than just the one dimension of your personality that you put out on your main channel, or myself included. This gives more depth to who we are, but
Right.
also that could take away from the image or the brand that we're trying to create.
So let's just agree that everything just got a little too serious, a little too heated, and everyone just needs to kind of lay back, get off of our backs about stuff, and we're going to be more inclined to do episodes going forward.
And I swear I'm going to update the SoundCloud and iTunes.
Yeah, that could
And
also help. So that
yeah,
people
we're
can stop
gonna have
going
to-
back to the same fucking episodes on YouTube.
We're going to have to pin this video on the Twitter account, which you can follow us on Twitter at SOTYcast, SOTYCAST. I believe that's the correct one, right?
All right,
SOTYcast,
so-
not SOTY Podcast.
So with all that being said, let me just sort of end the show with this point. What is the future of SOTY right now? It's well known that things will probably never be the same. Mumkey may never be the same coming out of this experience he just went through. I don't really know what the future holds for this show, but I can tell you that the old era is pretty much done for. The old era that's pretty much spanning from November until May, I really don't think it's going to be even possible to go back to that and try to recapture that dynamic.
Well, okay, so sorry, go ahead if you have more.
Just whether it's an altered Mumkey or just a new co-host entirely, I don't really think things will ever return to how they were. All right? So, and I'm just going to be completely straightforward with that. If you're expecting the same old SOTY, if you're going to go down in the comments and complain about how, oh, SOTY changed, man, they used to be cool, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be the same. So don't come in with that expectation.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worse or any less entertainment. What I want to say is that, so I mean, this was a revealing episode, I guess, for me, based on what you said about how you kind of wanted to drop being on the podcast at all. What I want to do with this channel, I want to keep this channel alive, and I don't necessarily want to stop doing podcasts. And whatever does end up happening, I feel like I want to keep this channel open to all of us involved. We can post whatever we end up doing here. I guess if it's podcast related, it could just be under the same umbrella. Not that a state of the YouTube is going to end, but if for whatever reason big changes cause something like that to happen, you can still find content from us on this channel.
All right. Well, with that being said, I think that's enough for now. I think we've cleared some info with the audience listening at home. And next up, we should have a much more fun episode, I guess. Or not fun.
Was it a revelation that Mumkey did the Why I Got Kicked from SOTY podcast? I mean, we're not kicking him, but I just think it's funny that was a joke a few months ago,
Well,
and now
a lot of
we're
stuff
going,
Mumkey
what
has
the
done
fuck's going on?
ended up being a prophecy. So
Oh
we'll
my
see
God.
we'll see what else ends up turning out that way.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see that meme though? They were taking a clip from Wheel of Punishment, and it shows Asperger wearing the prison outfit, and then it shows Mumkey in the baby outfit, and they're like, Asperger, this was a prophecy. This happened. Mumkey, this happened, and then it's me in the Minions costume, and they're like, what does this mean?
The Minion knife game.
It's
Clearly.
coming. It's coming soon.
All right. Well, if you're still sticking with us, thanks for stopping by, I guess.
Be sure to hit like and subscribe for more regular content.
We'll try to have more stuff for you soon, and we'll see if Mumkey can get on to sort of explain himself. And then
I think we are going to have him on.
And then we'll get a better look at what exactly is going to happen with this show in the future.
Fun times ahead. Thank you for listening, everyone.